A very good morning, a very good morning and good evening. Welcome to the Prevail 2021. As most of you would have attended the conference of the Prevail 2021 from the last 2 days, here is the continuation to that. Having a workshop, we are going to take you through the functional automation track. Why today functional automation? So with me today, we have Pravin Fengade, the test automation specialist from Global Test Automation, Karthik Kumar, Test Automation Specialist, Global Test Automation. And myself, Margaret, I'm the Program Manager of the Global Test Automation. Once again, I give a warm welcome to each and every one of you to this functional track and hope you would learn and see the need of the functional testing and why functional automation on cloud. We are going to see that. Now let's take a look at the agenda of this workshop of the 2 days, which is going to happen on 20 and 21st. So here we are going to cover on the functional test automation framework using Selenium. Why Selenium and what more you would see as part of this agenda. So we are going to have a brief introduction of the test automation, different components of Selenium, introduction to WebDriver, Selenium locators and the basic concepts, and test automation frameworks, how it comes up, then what all we have from the IBM Ignite platform, and introduction to OpenShift and Docker, and how we bring in the functional automation on the OpenShift and Docker on cloud. So as we move on, we are going to see why today functional testing is so keen and why it's important and how we do it with automation. Test automation involves automating manual process already in places that uses a formalized testing process. So people must have been doing the manual way of the test cases, writing it and executing it. Now here we are going to see how we are going to convert the manual test case into testing scripts. You would come across many technologies and domains. We have picked up here where most of them are with the web applications, uh, name the domain or the industry, the banking domains, what you get to see the applications on your browsers, and now today on the mobile browsers, how testing can be achieved for the web applications. We do have a vast coverage which would span across all the technologies, but for this workshop, we have picked up a very specific on the web application and how it can be done with the Selenium open source. And many must have heard about the open source, how it's taking off, and how automation is taking a turn in this area. So let us see the advantage, why, and when to automate. So when you have a frequent regression testing that has to be taken place, your frequent release which goes, and probably when you're doing with your HDLC agile way, you would require the automation to happen on every sprint cycles. So repeated test cases execution is required. People get bored and bugged doing the manual way. Those places we can bring in the automation and making it faster and speeder. And it reduces the human effort. The more the way the automation and the industry is heading, the next couple of years, we would see a lot more coming in AI and the edge technologies. So test the same application, multiple environment, multiple browser applications that you want to test. You develop in one of the browsers and then take it across multiple browsers. That's another advantage. And it spans across the different languages. So if there is a client spanned across the various regions and with the different languages on the web applications or on their portals, this can be tested easily, and then the functional testing can be made much easier, and you could see a shift left approach can be picked up, and your automation becomes very smoother, faster, in a reduced cycle, and you will do a lot more work, and go to market becomes much easier once your product has been tested or your application has been tested. It takes you to the sooner to the market. So that's the great advantage why automation and why on functional automation. So upcoming slides or upcoming sections, you would see more how we are going to do through Selenium with the open source. And now I will try to hand over to Praveen, who will take you through the rest of the Selenium driver, how it's going through, and then how on the cloud, then how with the Docker, and you would have a hands-on as well. How do you pick it up? So a happy day to each and every one of you, and we'll have a wonderful session. And please post all your questions on the event. We would try to address them or mail you as well if based on the timing. So I will hand over to Praveen to take this forward. Thank you all.
Okay, thanks, Maggie, for handing over. Okay, so as Maggie kind of explained, the overall agenda for this particular workshop is going to be around Selenium and then creating a something reusable framework and then deploying it to the OpenShift. So myself, Praveen, okay, I have Karthik also, one of my colleague with me. So we are going to walk you through with some of the key concepts around Selenium theoretically today. And then tomorrow we'll probably just try to do some hands-on activity also. Okay. So let's start deep diving into what is Selenium. Okay, so to start with, as Maggie kind of initially mentioned, it's open source tool. So definitely being open source, it's widely used nowadays in our industry, especially for software testing of web application. Selenium itself has multiple components as a part of it, and uh, components like a Selenium IDE, right? So IDE is nothing but integrated development environment, right? It's like one of the Firefox and Chrome plugin, okay, which you can easily install, which works on record and playback mechanism. So the way it works is you simply just record your flow or the test case, and then you can play it back after making changes to the data or steps basically, right? So it's one of the simplest way of creating automation through record and playback mechanism, right? So that's the first component, which is Selenium IDE. Next component or second component as a part of Selenium test suite is Selenium RC or Selenium remote control. Some people were calling it as a Selenium 1 also. Okay. So because it was like a first version of Selenium where people were able to execute the test cases remotely on some client or different server, right? And that component through the remote execution was allowing you to take a control of your local web browser, right? Or on another web browser also, if you are creating a remote session. So it was like a Selenium first version. Nowadays, it's not used. So most of the people are moved on to the upgraded version, which is like a Selenium 2 basically. Uh, Selenium 2, or it is called as a Selenium WebDriver also. So just a short story. Selenium RC was there in initial days, but nowadays most of the people are getting rid of it and moving toward the newer version of Selenium, which is WebDriver. So Selenium WebDriver, the most popular component among the Selenium test suite, is used widely across the software test industry for creating automation. Okay, and throughout our workshop also, we are going to focus mostly on the Selenium WebDriver component and then the Selenium Grid, of course. Okay, so these are the two components what we are going to use in our workshop. So let's say what is Selenium WebDriver. So WebDriver, when it was kind of created, it was called as a Selenium 2, but now actually there are a newer version of Selenium WebDriver came into. The latest stable version is Selenium 3.14, okay? But there is Selenium 4 also in place, but the last or the latest stable version, we can say it's Selenium 3.x or 3.14, okay? So Selenium WebDriver, and we will see in detail about how it works and what is the significance of it, how it is used in the upcoming slide. But Selenium WebDriver, it is basically controlling your web browser locally or on the remote machines. Okay, so in a way you can say like it's the upgraded version of your Selenium 1 or the Selenium RC. Okay, And we'll talk more about that. We'll understand more about how it works with the help of some analogy also, right? Which will help you all to understand how it works. Okay. Final component or the fourth component in the Selenium test suite is the Selenium grid. Okay. So Selenium grid is basically just taking a Selenium WebDriver or Selenium RC to the newer level, right? So with the help of Selenium grid, you can run the test case parallelly on multiple systems, which is basically helping you to cut down your execution time. Of course, means if you are able to run your test cases in parallel threads, your total test suite execution time is drastically coming down, right? So that's what Selenium grid is coming into the picture, and it is going to help you to automate in a faster way to save the time, as well as it is going to help you to test the multiple browsers on multiple operating system also. Because one of the advantage Selenium grid provides is like it helps you to connect with some of the open source as well as the commercial cross-browser testing tools, right? So that you can test the same tests, or you can execute the same test case or test automation scripts on multiple operating system or multiple browsers, right? Through the remote web driver. And we are going to use this in our workshop also. So that's why means it's important to kind of understand about Selenium WebDriver and Selenium Grid as a part of this theory session. Okay. So let's move on to next slide. Let's come to the next slide about WebDriver. So now in the subsequent slides, we are going to deep dive into WebDriver because that's the core of Selenium suite, right? So to start with Selenium WebDriver, so this particular slide, you see the some simplified or the basic architecture, okay, how the Selenium WebDriver works, okay. So you have basically on the left side multiple programming languages. So multiple programming languages where you can code your scripts, write your test cases, okay, and it is going to help you to use your preferred programming language to create a test script. Okay, and then you have certain JSON wire protocols which basically interacts with the Selenium APIs. Okay, so there are multiple Selenium APIs in the form of web drivers also, or you can call it as a browser drivers also. There is a separate API which controls the Firefox driver. It's called as a geekodriver.exe. There is a separate API which is used to control the Chrome driver, Chrome driver.exe. Okay. Similarly, there are separate APIs or the browser driver files, exe files, okay, which helps you to control the actions to be performed on different browsers. Okay. Okay. And then the APIs or the exe file basically control your real browsers, right? So like a Gecko driver or the Firefox driver can control your Firefox browser. Control means it will help you to perform the actions, intended actions on the browser, like open browser, click on this element, navigate to this page, right? So these are different actions basically which you can perform on a certain browser, right? So simplified architecture is like you code your steps or the commands basically through your preferred programming language. You use the JSON wire protocol, invoke or leverage your browser driver APIs, which helps you to control your real browser. So the command is coming from the programming language, and with the help of the browser driver, that is getting executed on your real browsers, which are involved on your operating systems. So that's the simplified way basically how it will work. And we will see it more simplified in upcoming slide also, next slide also, how it works. Okay. But just to kind of highlight on some of the key pointers here. Okay. So WebDriver, it's kind of a design to provide a simpler and unified programming interface, right? Those same way what I was explaining here. You can choose your preferred language which you want to use to code your script, right? So the WebDriver is Selenium WebDriver is just kind of providing you that flexibility, okay, and that interface basically to use your programming language. Same WebDriver script can run or execute on different platforms, right? So for example, you write simple script, let's say Java or Python. Same script you can use with the help of different browser driver to run it on different execution environment like Chrome or Firefox or Edge, or even on the different operating system as well, right? Like a Windows or Mac or Linux also. Only thing is like you should have those browsers available on those operating systems, because at the end of the day, Selenium is a web browser automation tool, right? So eventually you need to have the browser execution environment where the test will run. Okay. We talked about this. It supports multiple programming languages: PHP, Ruby, Java, Perl, C Sharp, Python being some of the popular ones. Okay. One big advantage what Selenium WebDriver provide is like you can create customized reports post execution, right? And there are a lot of open source libraries also available, which helps you to create the customized reports. So all these basically, due to all these features and all, it's becoming, or it has become basically popular web test automation tool. Okay. So let's see basically in the next slide how it works. So I'm just going to explain the basic concept, how the Selenium works in most simplified way I could think of with the help of simple analogy here. Okay. So let's consider, means you want to get to point A to point B, right? Through some car or taxi basically, right? So what will you do? You will get into the taxi as a passenger. You will tell some instruction to your taxi driver, right? Like I want to go to 123 street, turn left, drive straight, turn right, and stop. So as a passenger, you are telling those instruction to the taxi driver. And then what taxi driver is doing as the next step is like taxi driver, he or she is just passing those instruction to the car with the help of mechanical parts, right? What car has, like he's pressing the button or turning the key to start the engine. He's pressing the accelerator to move forward, pressing the brakes to slow down. He's using steering wheel to turn right or left, and then he's stopping the engine, right? And then your car is the actual environment where the actual action is performed, right? So car is basically accelerating, turning right, and kind of turning left and all. So that car is your actual execution environment where the things are performed or actions are performed, right? So let's try to relate this analogy now with the Selenium WebDriver. So let's say what happened when you get into the taxi, you kind of passed on some instruction to your taxi driver, right? You want to get to this place and these are the instructions, right? So now similarly, you have a browser driver, let's say, or you have a tester basically. So tester is just passing on certain instruction through the programming language through the browser driver. So now consider your taxi driver equivalent to your tester, right? So as a tester, you are passing on some instructions basically through some Java or Python code to your browser driver. Browser driver is nothing but like a in the last slide we saw, right? These browser drivers like Firefox, Gecko driver for Firefox, or Chrome driver for Chrome browser. So these are browser driver. So as an automation tester, you are passing on those instruction with the help of some programming language code to your browser driver. And the instruction could be like open this browser or URL, do a click or keyword search, check or validate if these are the results. So like these are just the simple actions what you perform on your web page. So you are passing on those to your browser driver. Now what browser driver is doing? Browser driver is just passing on those instructions to the browser basically. So similarly, your taxi driver kind of pass on those instructions to the car for actual execution, right? So your browser driver here is passing on, understanding those instructions and passing them on to your actual browser. Let's say the real browser here, which is installed on your machine, right? Same instruction. So it's just translating those instruction one by one and telling the browser to perform that action. right? Like when a text box is visible, save web element, click on the text box object, click on the button. If it's clickable, verify it if it's clickable or not, if it's enabled or not. So those are just a set of instruction. Your browser driver is converting those instruction from your Java programming code, what you wrote as a tester, and sending it those to the browser, actual browser. So actual browser is your execution environment where the test or actions are performed, right? So you will see how the actions are being performed in your web browser basically, right? So that's your execution environment. So if you try to relate these both things together now, so your automation tester basically is like your passenger who is as an end client who is passing on the instructions. Then your browser driver is your is like a taxi driver who is understanding the instruction from passenger and telling to the car. Similarly, your browser driver is understanding the instruction from the code what you have written and then telling the browser, real browser, to execute that. And then your browser is like a taxi which is actually performing the action, right? So that's the simplest way we can explain how the Selenium WebDriver works, right? Okay, so that was just one analogy. I just wanted to explain, try to relate how what is the significance of browser driver and then tester, right? Or as a tester, what you write a code and then where the actual execution happens. Okay, so let's move on to the uh, next slide. So with that, actually, I will just hand it over to my colleague Karthik. So he will just take you through some of the next slides. So over to you, Karthik.
Hi, all. This is Karthik here. So Praveen has explained given the overview of the Selenium WebDriver. So I would like to give more details and also I'll explain more on the code level with some few examples on how to use the WebDriver with the actual code. So we have taken the Java for the example, and also we have given some of the code samples using the Python. So as Praveen has explained about the Selenium WebDriver, I would like to just give it in a little bit different way, where say for a particular building, you have a blueprint where it has the shows the overview of a particular building, and it shows what are the kind of windows or doors it has. It just gives an overview of the particular building, right? So something it's like that. Selenium WebDriver, it provides you the all the methods that is required to that is required to perform the action on the browser. Say for example, I want to open the browser, I want to click a link or set some text. These are the methods. So these method names has been defined in the Selenium WebDriver in the form of an abstraction. So if you take in Java, if you have the concept of interface, it uses the interface concept where the classes are defined in the abstract way. So what is abstraction? It just provides the methods without having the actual details on how it is going to get implemented. So if I take the example of a Selenium WebDriver in Java, it will have the methods defined such as get URL or send text or click element or find element. All these are defined. So it provides the kind of the methods that has to be used by the each browser, but it doesn't provide the actual code where it will perform the actions on the browser. So next comes the actual browser drivers. So for example, we have the Firefox drivers, we have the Chrome drivers. So for each browser, we will have the separate drivers. So by using the WebDriver interface, the WebDriver gets implemented on either Firefox or Chrome. So once that gets implemented, the WebDriver interacts with the actual browser installed in your machine. So that's how it works. So say for example, manually, if I want to open a browser, I will simply go and give chrome.exe and start going to the URL and perform the actions. But for the automation, what we do is we take the WebDriver, initiate the WebDriver, then use the Chrome driver and then start the Chrome. Once that is done, I have the driver initiated, then I can start interacting with the driver with the methods. So the methods are already defined in the WebDriver abstract. So I can start using it once it gets implemented. So in this example, what we can see is import the Selenium open QA Selenium WebDriver. So what we do is we take the Selenium WebDriver package, we import it to the particular code package. So as you say, if in the take of example of Java, Selenium WebDriver is available as one of the dependency. You can take the jar file and then import it. Or if you take Python, it is all available as a WebDriver from the Selenium library. So you can import it from the Python library also if you are using Python. So once the import is done, you initiate it using WebDriver driver. Then we use the system.set property. So what is use of this is, as I told you, WebDriver provides the methods, but we need to implement the method for the particular browser. So for that, we need the browser file. So the system has to know what is the path of the driver file. So what we use is we use the system property as WebDriver.GeckoDriver. So this Gecko driver path has been set using the system.set property. Then once this is done, the driver is initiated using the driver equal to Firefox driver. So we got the instance of the driver using the Firefox. Say for example, if I want to do a Chrome, then it will be like system.set property WebDriver.Chrome driver. Then I will give the Chrome driver.exe, then driver equal to new Chrome driver. So I get the Chrome driver initiated. So whatever browser you want to initiate, you can use this. The only point is we have to set the system.set property so that you get the set the driver path. So I hope this will give an overview of how exactly you want to say you start the code for the Selenium WebDriver. This will be the first step to start the script. The basic thing what we use for the Selenium. Okay. So once this is done, I have the driver, the WebDriver, and the driver I can use it anywhere within the script. So I can perform driver.sendText or get URL, whatever method I want to perform, I can do it. Okay. So this is the overview of the WebDriver. Now let me go to the next slide. Yeah. So here we will explain more on the element locators. So the element locators is actually the locators. It's actually help us to identify the element. So for a web page, we have the images, we have the text boxes, we have the selection boxes. So the Selenium WebDriver got initiated in the previous slide. As you can see, driver equal to new WebDriver. So that driver has to identify an element. So how does it identify it? It has to interact with the HTML page that got opened through the Chrome driver or Firefox driver. So for that, we use the locator. So for the locators, there are various options available to use the locators. Okay. So without locators, the Selenium WebDriver may not it may not be able to identify the elements within that page, right? So what we do is we follow any of the locators that is defined in the Selenium WebDriver. So if I go to the below here, list of locators of Selenium WebDriver. ID, name, link text, partial link text, tag name, class name, CSS, XPath. So say you have initiated the WebDriver using the Gecko driver. Now you want to identify the elements, right? So for that you can use any of these locators. So which locator I have to use, that depends on the elements. That comes with some of the guidelines we have. Say for a particular element, how it is defined in the web page, Based on that, you can easily decide on which locator you need to use. So normally what we do is we go with the ID locator. So in the screenshot we have given like input name equal to txt username, ID equal to txt username, type equal to text. So in the actual web page, this is actually an username field where something like a username, entering the username passwords in the login page. So input is the tag name for this particular element, and name is equal to txt username. So name is an attribute for this element. ID is an attribute, type is an attribute, and we have the value defined here. So as these are defined, it provides me the various options here. I can use either name or ID or type. It depends on the elements, how it is defined in the web page. So for this example, I can see the name is defined, ID is defined properly. But if I open something else, I might have ID, but I may not have name. I might have class, but I may not have type. It depends on how it is defined in the HTML page. So for that, what we need to do, we have to open the web page, we have to inspect the element and then decide which locator we need to use. So for this particular element, what I can use is I can take the ID locator, because normally the IDs will be the unique locators for a particular web page, and also it will have a meaningful value, meaningful name for a particular element. So I can use ID here, or I can use name here. So I think we have covered ID and name. Next thing is link text. So the link text is, what is link text is, simply the below example. For a particular link, we will have something like a hyperlink. You might have some hyperlinks in the web page where it says click here. If you move the mouse over that link, you have the text. So that text is defined in this web page. So that is called as the link text. So for a particular link, you can also use the link text here by using the locator as link text. Then another option is tag name. So tag name is the actual tag name that has been of the element which you are referring. It could be input or span or a or tr or td. It depends on your page. So I can use the tag name also, or we can also use the class name. See in the below example, we have something called span class equal to form hint. So we can use span. Span is the tag name, class equal to form hint. We can use this class name also for this element. So these are the kind of common locators we use using the WebDrivers. So if you are going to start the scripting on WebDriver, you should be familiar with these locators. Now we will have the CSS and XPath. So what is CSS and XPath? So CSS and XPath is actually the kind of selectors where it uses the combination of the attributes here to identify element. So why we want to use the combination here? Why can we not use just the ID or name? It's because not all the elements will have the unique ID or unique name, and it may not be suitable to use the only one locators. By just using ID, we may not be able to identify a particular element, or we may not be able to uniquely identify for a particular page. So that's why we go with CSS or XPath. So for that, what we use is we use the combination, like we use the combination of the tag name and the attribute name. So the tag name could be input, or tag name could be span, or it could be div, or it could be a. And then we'll give the locator name like type equal to text or ID equal to txt username. So this is the kind of the selectors that we use to identify the element by using the combination. So CSS has a particular format and XPath has some particular format. So this is the example where you can see in CSS we give input, open bracket, type equal to text. Whereas for the XPath, we give / div input at ID equal to text username. So you can see some differences between these two selectors. That is because it uses different formats here. For XPath, we use / to tell that this is the tag name in relative perspective. So that when we go into the detail level like XPath, you can find out there will be various ways you can define the XPath. But if you can assume that this is the simple way of using the XPath, where you give the tag name as div, then under the div you have the input tag name. Under that I use the ID equal to text username, where ID is the attribute name and attribute value. So using this, we can identify the elements within the web page. Okay, so this is about the locators for the using Selenium. Now we will go on to the Selenium commands. So earlier I explained, the WebDriver provides us the various methods to interact with the browser. So all these are methods, what we call it as a commands here. So we have the commands to navigate the browser, to find the element, to click the elements, or select some values in the drop down, or enter some value, or read some value. So all these methods are already defined in WebDriver. So what we have to do is we have to understand what are the various methods available, and then we can start using it. So the first one is navigation. Navigation is to navigate to a particular URL. So normally we use driver dot get that URL. That will be the command to navigate. Next one would be find element or find elements. So find elements is here earlier we explained about the locator, right? So using the locator, we find that element using this method, or sometimes we use find elements also. So find elements is to find the list of elements, because sometimes when we give a particular attribute name, you will have the list of elements, not a one element. It might have multiple elements. So that in that case, we use the find elements. Then we have the checkboxes and radio buttons. Here we also use the same concept of web element, but the type of element would be checkboxes. What we'll do, we'll provide the code in the next slide, so that will give more picture on the checkboxes and radio box. Drop down and multiple select. So in the web page, you will have some selection boxes. So for that, we use a different method where we identify the element using the tag name, ID or name. Then we select that value. So normally in a web page, we will have the values defined in the options. So using that value, we use the select. Then comes the enter values. So enter values is where we enter the text in the text boxes like username or password. For that, we normally use the send text method. Then we have to read the values. Say if we perform the values, we enter some values in the web page. Then we have to validate some values whether it's displayed correctly or not. For that, we use the get text method. Next is handling alerts. Handling alerts is something like, say you're performing some actions, but suddenly you're getting a pop-up message saying that what you are doing, or say this is not incorrect. It is a warning message. Then you click OK for that. Some of the alerts message. So those are the alerts. So Selenium WebDriver has some methods where it handles the alerts here. Then handling the web table. So handling the web table is done through set of code here that we will explain it detailedly in the next code, where we explain through the actual code. So these are the navigation commands. So navigation commands, we have navigate to, forward, back, refresh. So if we open the browser, we have all these options. Say we move backward, we move forward, right, in the browser. Same thing we can do using the WebDriver. But before doing all this, we have to first initiate it using the browser.get URL. Once that is done, we can start using these navigations. There are few more commands available like send keys. Send keys is already explained in the read text. Click command, you can see it is to click the particular element. Get text, we have seen it in the read text. Get size. Get size is to get the number of elements in a particular for a particular locator. Say you find the list of elements. So if you want to find how many elements are there, for that you can use get size. Okay. So now what we will do, we will maybe go on to the next one where we explain in the detail of with some example code here. In the Java, we have written some examples here. So, Kevin, can you zoom it a little bit? Yeah. Okay. So here we can we are giving an example of the code here using the some of the methods which you have explained in the earlier slide. So so here you can see the line number 14 to 17. That is the basic commands that is explained earlier where we initiate the WebDriver. So we give the system.set property, set the path of the Chrome driver, then initiate the driver, then maximize the driver. This will be the first step we have to use when we have to initiate a browser in the WebDriver. Now I want to perform some navigations, like I want to move forward or move backward, or I opened an URL, but say we want to I want to open a navigate to a different URL, say use navigate to. Now line number 22, what we can see is driver.find element by.xpath.click. So in the last slide, we explained about the various locators. So there we can explain about the XPath. So here we give by.xpath. So what we are saying is we are going to find that element using some locators, going to use a XPath as the selector. We are not going to use ID or class. We are going to use XPath. Under XPath, we are giving the tag name and we are finding that tag by giving additional details like the text contains this login. Once that element is identified, we perform the click operation here. So find element by.xpath.click. So by this method, what happens is the WebDriver, it finds the button which contains the text as login. So it could be some button which is having a login button. So it clicks the login button through this command. Next is navigate, back, forward or refresh. There, this is the navigation commands. Now we'll move on to the next one, line number 28 and 29. So 28 and 29, what we are doing here, we are navigating to a particular URL. So we have already opened the URL. Then we are navigating it through the another URL. Next one is find element by ID dot click. So what you can see, it is almost similar to line number 22. But only difference here is instead of XPath, we are using the ID here, then clicking that element. So what we see here is this is a checkbox. So you can see that the ID is something like is age selected. So it is actually a checkbox which has the ID is age selected. So we are finding that element and clicking it. So what happens after clicking it? The checkbox get checked. It would have got unchecked. Now by performing this, it would have got checked by executing the line number 29. Next is radio button. Radio button, it's almost similar to the check boxes where you identify the element, then click that element, and you perform the click the radio button so that that particular radio button got enabled. So code wise, it's almost same here. The check boxes or the radio button. Code level, it's almost the same. But when you actually open the web page and identify that element, you will find the difference by by using the ID or name. So Now we'll move on to the next one, which is drop down. So drop down is it's something like a list of values where we have the list of fields, and we have to select one item on that. So for that, what we use is we get the element, use the find element by using the ID. Then we click that the drop down. Sometimes what happens is we need to first click it, then we have to select it. So for in that case, we click it. Otherwise, we can directly go to line number 45, where we select the we initiate a select here. So select is a different object which is particularly defined under web Selenium for handling the selection boxes. So what we do is select day equal to new select, which uses the element as day drop down. So day drop down is the element defined, and we use that element to initiate this select. After initiating this day, which is a select, we can select any of the items here. So for that, we have various options. One option is select by index. Index is, it starts with 0, 1, 2, 3 like that. So under this list boxes, we'll have some set of items under the say it has 10 items under that selection box. So here what I'm performing, I'm selecting the 5th item here by using the index. So by giving select by index 5, that is one option. Another option is select by value. So I don't want to use the option index here. We can directly give the value also. So if you know the value, you can directly give the value as Friday. So Friday is one of the options available. Instead of Monday, Tuesday, we are selecting the Friday here by giving day dot select by value Friday here. Or with another option is select by visible text. So whatever the your text is actually displayed, we can use this method also to select the Thursday value for a particular selection box. So this is on the drop down. Now we will move on to the entering the text. So the entering the text is, it's simply entering some values in a particular user ID or password fields. For that, we have to first find the element, then give the send keys. By this particular text, it would have got entered in this element called user message. So under user message, this keys would have got entered by this line number. So after entering, say if you want to read that value, to perform some validation, say you want to check whether the actual that values has been entered or not. For that, we use get text. So driver dot find element, then got get text. By that, I would have get the string. Then by using the string, we can either print that message or we can validate the message. It depends on the test cases. Next one is handling the alerts. So alerts, I have told you, like it is some unexpected alerts or expected alerts you might get sometimes in your page. So it is just to accept it, just to click the OK button. For that, we can use alert.accept. Okay, next one is the table. So you will have various tables in the web page. So to handling the tables, what we do here is we use the combination of a combination of code here. So first, what we do is we first find out how many rows are there. So we get the list as web element, then find elements. So what is happening is list web element rows numbers equal to find elements. So the Selenium finds the number of rows in a particular table and get these elements as a list here. So say for example, particular table has 10 rows, and each row will be taken as an element here, and it will be added as a list here in web element under row numbers. So if I have 10 rows, in the rows number, I will have 10 items added in that list web element, and these rows numbers will contain these elements under this for each row. Then comes the column number. So column number is another list where for a particular row number, how many columns are there? So here you can see in the code by.xpath tbody / tr1. So 1 is referring to the first row number here. So going to the first row number, then finding a list of columns and assigning it to the list here. That is the list web element column number. So once this is done, what we do is we can interact with the table here using the row number or column number here. So once this list is created, I can also get the size here. So what is the use of size? Size is to get the number of rows or number of columns. So because during the coding, we may not know how many rows or how many columns might be there in a particular table. So for that, we use the size here. So once that is done, we can get the size. We can also enter the values. We can get the values using this list of the set of code. So I think we have gone through some of the code level of the common methods in the Selenium. So I think we can now move on to the next one. Okay. So next one is on the framework. So next 2 slides we'll just explain about the framework here. So the test automation framework, it provides the guidelines or coding standards, practices, provides a reporting mechanism, test data for a particular automation testing. Okay, so that's how it is defined here. So why we need an automation framework? Why cannot we directly start with the scripting? We already know the script for the drivers or the methods, right? But what is the use of the framework is for any particular project or account, we need to define how we are going to organize the scripts, how we are going to organize the elements, how we are going to store the locators, how we are going to store the test data, how we are going to report it. So it depends on how we are, depends on each project, and they have to come up with a framework to identify how the actual scripting will be done, in what format. So the test automation gives us the the way on how we are going to create the script, how we are going to manage the test data, how we are going to store the object locators, how we are going to create the reports. All these are defined in the test for automation framework. So these are some of the types of the frameworks. So data driven is the first one, where the data is stored in an external database. So database means it could be an Excel sheet or it could be in a DB. Normally it will be stored in a key value pair. So key value pair means it could be username as key, actual username value as the value here. So using that key value pair, we can store the data here. So why we want to use a test data driven approach? Why we want to use it? If you're not using the data driven, then this data has to be actually hard coded in the code, and it will be difficult to execute when we have to execute it for multiple test cases for multiple data. So in that case, it will be always good to store the data in a database, then execute it so that the data is coming from the database, and if I want to run it for multiple data, I can easily update the database, and then the framework will take that data and execute it. So that is on the data driven. Next one is keyword driven. So keyword driven is a type of approach where the script is not created in actual code here. The script will be created by the automation tester or functional tester or even a business analyst. The script will be created in a form of keywords here that is defined in the framework. So the keywords would be something like navigate to a particular URL. So I would say go to your URL. I can define a keyword like go to URL. Then we can define a keyword like enter value. Then we can define a keyword like validate text. Some of the keywords are there. So we can directly enter those keywords in an Excel sheet or in a text file or any other format. And that keywords will be read by the framework and it will execute those steps. So we don't need to actually create the script in Java or Python. We can directly create it in the keywords in this framework. Now hybrid. Next one is hybrid. Hybrid is, it's a combination of both. So we will have both keyword as well as data driven. That is called hybrid. So in many cases, we will not go with singular approach here. Mostly we will go with hybrid approach because our framework has to, have the enough features to, so it has to support all our automation, scripting, execution, and maintenance. So we have to think all in those perspective. So usually we go with the hybrid approach by combining the data driven and keyword driven, or we use data driven and or BDD. Okay, so that is called hybrid approach. So BDD approach, behavior driven framework. So this is the recent in the recent times, we see that BDD framework has been used by many automation teams, where the scripts is actually created in a very readable format, something like a normal text file, where we give it something like, given I navigate to some URL and I enter some value in a text and I get some value and I validate some value. So it is easily understandable by any person and it can be easily be created by anyone. Just by knowing the basic language, we can create the script in the BDD approach. So normally in BDD, we create something called a feature file. So using that feature file, this BDD framework will execute it based on the feature file steps. Next is the UIF framework. So UIF framework is actually our own framework from IBM automation team, where it is a user interface for automation framework. It is a scriptless framework. So it is actually an hybrid framework where it uses the descriptive programming to identify the elements. It uses the keyword driven. It also uses the data driven, and it uses the Selenium tool. So to create this, create the script in this framework, we have to use the keywords. We don't need to actually open the script and start creating the script in Java or Python. You can start by using the keywords and you can easily execute it. Additional features of this framework is it also, it's integrated with the CI/CD pipeline Jenkins. It's also integrated with test management tools like Jira and ALM. So these are some of the advantages of using our framework, where anyone can create it within 5 days of training. It is very easy, and since it is not using the actual script, it is we call it as a scriptless framework. It also uses the industry standard integration such as Jenkins and reports. And it is also very easy to maintain framework. So the scripts or the test data or the objects locators, it's very easy to maintain in this framework. On top of that, if we want to add any methods or keywords, we can easily do it using our libraries. So this framework will be actually used in your day 2 demo and which Praveen will be walking through. So this framework will be actually used for your actual execution. So we can move on to the next one. So this is a very simple diagram I have given you just to give a little bit very simple framework. So if I want to develop a very simple framework, data-driven framework, then what we can do, we can just create a driver script. We can create a script to perform the testing. Say we can create some methods defined in some script. Then we can store the objects in a Excel or any other format. Then we can store the test data in Excel, and the driver script will actually read the script and it will take the locators from the object locators stored, and it will take the data from the Excel or database, perform the actions on Firefox or Chrome, and can also generates the report in Excel or HTML. So the concept wise, it is the same what I have explained in the earlier slide, but it is just a very simple diagram which I want to show you so that you can have a more understanding of some simple framework. Suppose if we want to develop, we can use this concept from. Okay, so I think that's it from my end. So thank you all. Praveen, can you take it forward?
Okay, thanks Karthik for explaining all the basic things about how Selenium commands are there, locators are there, what is framework, all the basic clear concepts and everything. Okay, so now since we kind of just talked about framework, what Karthik explained, I would like to share some more information about one of our IBM's uh, uh, flagship test automation solution or framework. Basically, it's a part of IBM Ignite platform. So Ignite Quality Platform is kind of a IBM offering for test automation, which consists of multiple tools from test design, analytics, execution, data management perspective. And part of the platform quality platform is OTFA offering, which is called as optimized test flow automation, which is used for execution of your test cases through automation. Okay, so that's what maybe just couple of slides I will just explain about what is Ignite OTFA and how it works. Okay, so again, this framework or this tool also is kind of a scriptless. Okay, so we are completely eliminating the dependency on the skilled programming resources, right? Because that becomes bottleneck for sometimes for projects, having the people who knows the programming and who can do the scripting. So OTFA is built in a form of like having a scriptless framework. Again, that is built on top of Selenium. So it's kind of underlining uses Selenium for web test automation. It does have some additional capability or the platforms which can be supported. So for example, not just web application, but it can also support the automation execution for API. And in the background or underlining, it uses SOAP UI as well as JMeter for API test execution. Again, both of those are also open source tool. It also supports the automation of your mobile application testing. Okay, so the mobile test automation, and for that it invokes Appium, which is again one of the open source tool built on top of Selenium. So OTFA in turns kind of uses your web test automation, supports your web test automation, mobile test automation, and then API test automation also. Okay. So some of the important capabilities what it has is like it's very easy to maintain your test cases. Okay, since it's mostly the scriptless, and then the test cases are written in a simple plain English language. So it's in a BDD format, what Karthik just explained earlier. So it uses like a Gherkin format test case writing concept, so that anybody, not just tester, but anybody can easily understand what this test case is trying to achieve and all, right? So that's the advantage of using the Gherkin language. And OTFA use that basically for the execution, Gherkin Cucumber format basically. So Cucumber also is one of the open source library or framework which is BDD based or the behavioral driven development approach based. Okay. So it also uses the advanced object mapping and data parameterization capability. So it's like it's helping you to reuse as much as possible, right? So you can just do the mapping one time for a particular object, and you can use that object n number of time in different test cases. It can also help you to parameterize your test cases, like same test case can be executed with different set of data, or same test case can be used or run multiple times also. Okay, so that sort of parameterization support is there. There is a lot of customization features available in OTFA which can be leveraged. Okay, uh, customization in terms of like executing on a particular operating system, browser, or let's say simple things like setting up your cookies for execution and also all those customization can be achieved. Okay. It has automated reporting. So once your execution is done, you can generate the reports automatically in nice user-friendly manner. Okay, so that comes by default with the framework or tool. Okay, and as I was saying, it does support web as well as API testing also. So it is using SOAP UI as well as JMeter. So since it's using JMeter, it does support some performance testing also at some level. So that is also part of the OTFA basically. And just to elaborate more on the key features, it does have support with Selenium. So Selenium is basically, so earlier actually in this session, I mentioned about Selenium Grid, right? So Selenium Grid, which is helping you to run your test cases parallelly and on the remote server, not on local, basically, not depending on local. So Selenium is just a Docker implementation of Selenium Grid, right? In a simple way, what you can call it. And Docker, we have a slide actually just to tell about what is Docker, but as of now, you can just see it as a container platform basically, which helps you to package your code and other things, okay, together. So Selenium is just a Docker implementation of your Selenium Grid, and OTFA already has the integration with Selenium. So you can use that feature to run your test case remotely basically, so that your machine is not occupied. You can keep on doing your other task on your laptop or machine, and the test execution will happen somewhere remote, okay, on the Selenium machines or the instances or VMs basically. Okay. Yes, even though it's a scriptless tool, but it has a feature or capability to write your custom code. So let's say while automation, you came across a scenario which need you to custom create some of the code. Okay, so OTFA does provide you a feature or capability to write your own custom code and bring it to the tool and use it for execution. You can use Java as well as Python, either of those languages, to write your custom code. OTP cookie handling, so that is already handled because handling OTP and cookie is important part nowadays for Selenium automation. Okay, it can directly integrate with your test and defect management tools also through APIs. So tools like Jira and all, you can directly integrate and fetch your execution or push your execution results also there. Okay, it can talk with database also for certain validations like database validations through some simple queries and all that can be done. Okay. Uh, OTFA does integrate with multiple cloud-based test solutions. So cloud-based test solutions means, for example, you have Browser Stack, right, or Source Lab, or Lambda Test. So these are all like a browser or cloud-based cross-browser platform or testing solution. So those type of integrations are already available with the help of OTFA. So these are some of the advanced features what you get with OTFA basically, right? So since the features are available by default, you don't have to spend time on integrations or in a kind of a making enablement for these features in your uh, automation framework. They come handy when you try to automate the complex application. Okay. And I think about the benefits I already kind of highlighted on those, right? Since it's a scriptless, anyone can automate with just simple learning of the tool. Okay, it supports multiple platforms, web, mobile, API. Also, it is DevOps enabled, so you can basically integrate with your Jenkins or Bamboo, your DevOps tools also directly, so that your automation testing is integrated seamlessly with your overall CI/CD pipeline, right? So with the help of OTFA, that can be easily achieved with the help of DevOps support. Okay. Just to elaborate more on how does it work basically from OTFA perspective, IBM Ignite OTFA perspective. So when you have the feature file, so feature file is just a set of Cucumber instructions as a part of your test case in the given when and then format. Basically, you simply just write your actions for your test case in that format, and those get fed to your OTFA. OTFA has the centralized object repository where you can map the locators, basically what Karthik explained earlier, locator for each object or element on your web application. Either it can be username or password, login button. So these are different fields basically on your application, let's say. And for each field, you will have unique locator, which can be captured either through ID, XPath, name, CSS selector, or tag name, class name. So any of those locators, what Karthik explained earlier. So you can basically create a repository of your object elements and store it, and you can use it anywhere in your application test case, right? And then once you have that repository, basically, you simply just use the uh, uh, feature file, which is set of your Gherkin instructions with the help of object library, and then the data file, and perform your execution. It can be on the web browser, it can be on your mobile app, mobile web, or it can be the mobile native apps or hybrid apps also, or it can be the APIs also, right? Both SOAP as well as API support. So all those things basically can be directly uh, executed with the help of just single tool. So it's like a single tool which is helping you to achieve automation for all these platforms. So that is how means in a simple way it works from orchestration perspective. So you need a feature file with a detailed set of your test case, step-by-step test case, object library, which is kind of helping you to uniquely locate your element on the web page or web application. Data file basically, which is helping you to read the data and then using that data. And then that's how with the help of these things, you can execute your test case on the different platforms and browsers. Okay. So just one more slide in this particular session. So since this session is about having the framework, test automation framework, which can be used for functional testing and which can be deployed to the cloud, OpenShift cloud basically, right? So it's important to learn about what is OpenShift and what is Docker, because that's what we are going to use in the subsequent session. We'll have more details about the framework, how it can be deployed, and then the hands-on activity also is depending on this. So just trying to include at high level what is OpenShift and Docker as a concluding topic for this particular session. Okay, and of course we'll have more detailed session on these topics. Okay, as a part of next session of Prevail. Okay, but to start off with what is OpenShift. Okay, so OpenShift is just one of the cloud solution basically, right? It's a family of containerization softwares developed by Red Hat. Okay, and now IBM has took over kind of Red Hat now. So it's kind of a partnership with Red Hat also now. So OpenShift is just a flagship product. Sorry, the OpenShift container platform is just a flagship product of overall OpenShift tool. So OpenShift is a family of multiple software, and the flagship product of OpenShift is OCP, or OpenShift Container Platform. And that's what we are going to use for our workshop also, hands-on workshop also. So OCP, or OpenShift Container Platform, is like a Red Hat's on-premise private PaaS service, right? A platform as a service. So platform as a service is one of the cloud offerings which provides you the platform basically, which can be helped to develop, deploy, and manage your applications, right? And PaaS helps you to focus more on the application development instead of kind of focusing on building the infrastructure which is required to run your application, right? And OCP, OpenShift Container Platform, is the Red Hat's PaaS service basically, what we are going to use. It's already powered by the Docker. Orchestration is used with the help of Kubernetes also. Okay, and we are going to use some of the Linux containers basically to deploy our application on OCP, OpenShift Container Platform. Okay, so as I was saying earlier, OCP basically helps you to develop, deploy, and manage your container-based or Dockerized applications. Okay, it is going to help you to create, modify, and deploy your applications on demand. and also auto scale them as needed, because it's a cloud, right? So the auto scaling is part of that cloud itself, right? So it is going to help you to deploy your application faster and make it available, market ready available, basically in a shorter duration. Again, the whole goal is try to focus on the application development part, like coding aspect, instead of building the infrastructure which is required to run that application. Okay, so that's what we will quickly see in the hands-on or the workshop session also, how quickly we can deploy the application or the framework and start using it. Okay, so you might remember Karthik earlier explained about the UIF framework, right? So this is just a simple application, web-based application, what we have created, which we are going to deploy to OpenShift platform and use it to do the functional automation for a sample scenario in a next sessions, basically. Okay. So I mentioned earlier about OpenShift is powered by Docker and all, and there were references to Docker earlier also. So let me tell about what is Docker. Okay, so Docker is basically just one of the open source containerization platform. Okay, containerization. So what is container basically? So container is basically something which is helping you to package all your dependencies in the form of jars, necessary softwares, files which are required to run your application. So you are basically just consolidating everything together in a single container, and then you are able to ship that wherever is needed. So Docker is just providing you that facility. Otherwise, what would happen without Docker is like whenever you want to use that particular application or something, you have to rely on downloading all the dependencies, jars from multiple sources and all. So it would take a lot of time basically, right? To make sure all the required underlying dependencies are available for your application to run. Right, so Docker is providing you that flexibility basically to containerize your application. Okay, also you can virtualize your OS itself, right? Standardize the executable components, combining the application source code with operating system itself, right? So that's also one of the advantage. You can basically just virtualize your hardware or operating system itself. Okay, and you can learn about Docker over the internet. Also, there are a lot of good tutorials available to get those concepts clear. But for this particular workshop and exercise, you can just think of Docker as a container platform which is helping you to build and package all your application and its dependencies together in the form of Docker image. And that Docker image can be deployed to your OCP, OpenShift Container Platform, for usage. Okay. Okay, so yes, one simple analogy, I think I already alluded to this one, is like shipping containers, right? So when you have a lot of items, actually, basically, you want to ship to a particular place. So you just put them in a container, basically, and then you just send them away, right, to the container. So container is helping you to ship all your dependent items or artifacts, basically, and wherever needed you can just unload those and start using them, right? So that is the help of that is the significance of like how Docker can be used. So we will see in the upcoming session basically to how do you use the Docker image of your UIF application, which is a functional test automation framework developed on Selenium, and deploy that image to your OpenShift container platform, and then use that containerized application for your functional test automation execution. Okay, so that is going to be the next step basically in this workshop. Okay, with that, I would like to thanks for joining in and listening in. So I hope this was very helpful for you to clear some of the basic concepts about what is functional test automation, what is Selenium, and then what is the framework. So and then we can basically think about next step also. So if you have any questions and all, you can always post those questions on the Prevail Okay, and you can try to reach out to any of us also. Okay, so I would like to thank Maggie and Karthik also for joining me to explain in detail about this session. Okay, so anything Maggie or Karthik you would like to add as a concluding comments for this session?
Thank you all for listening to this session, and I hope we hope that it will would have got more understanding of the Selenium and how to use the framework. So thank you all and all the best.
Thanks, Karthik and Praveen, for giving this wonderful presentation and taking them through the entire uh, thing on the functional track, how testing and test automation and on cloud, how it can be done with OpenShift. I guess team, you would have got the bigger understanding, and if it's a learning step, just started off, still it is good. Please post your questions. Um, and we would get back to you, and you would wait for the next session where we are going to have the hands-on the functional testing with Selenium. So once again, thank you so much to be part of this Prevail 2021. Thank you.
Thank you.